I never thought my own parents would betray my daughter. For 14 years, my wife and I had been quietly building a college fund for our daughter, Lily. Every birthday check, every small bonus from work, every tax refund we deposited a little more. It wasn't millions, but it was hers, her future, her chance to graduate without drowning in debt like we did. My parents knew about the account because, years ago, I made the mistake of trusting them. When Lily was born, my dad insisted we open the account at the same credit union he used. He even offered to help manage it in case something ever happened to us. At the time, it sounded responsible, loving even. So his name ended up on the account as a secondary holder. I didn't think about it much after that. Life got busy. Work, bills, school events, normal family chaos. Then 3 months ago, I logged into the account to transfer another deposit. The balance read $214.63. I stared at the screen, convinced it had to be a glitch. Just a month before, the account held $48,000. My hands started shaking as I refreshed the page again and again. The number didn't change. I immediately called the bank. The representative sounded calm to calm. Yes, sir. There was a withdrawal 2 weeks ago. The funds were transferred out by an authorized account holder. Authorized holder. My stomach dropped. Who? I asked, already knowing the answer. Your father. For a moment, I couldn't even speak. When I finally confronted him, he didn't deny it. In fact, he looked annoyed that I was upset. Relax, he said casually. It's still in the family. My chest tightened. What does that mean? He sighed like I was the unreasonable one. Your sister's son got accepted into a private college. They needed help. We used Lily's fund. Used, like it was spare change. Dad, I said slowly, trying to keep my voice steady. That money belongs to my daughter. He waved his hand dismissively. She's only 14. You've got years to rebuild it. Then he said the sentence that changed everything. Besides, your nephew deserves it more. He actually has the grades. That night, I sat in my kitchen staring at the empty account statement while Lily did her homework at the table. She had no idea her future had just been stolen. But what my parents didn't realize was this. They might have taken the money, but they had just started a war they weren't prepared to fight. And I knew exactly how I was going to get every single dollar back. Part 2 coming next.
I didn't tell Lily that night. She sat across from me at the kitchen table, highlighting notes for a history test, completely unaware that the future we had been saving for her was gone. I just watched her quietly and felt something inside me harden. My parents thought I would simply rebuild the fund. They thought I'd swallow it like I always had whenever they crossed a line. They were wrong. The next morning I called the credit union again, this time, asking for every transaction record from the past year. When the statement arrived in my email, the truth became even uglier. My dad hadn't just withdrawn the money. He transferred the entire $48,000 directly into an account owned by my sister. Not a loan, not temporary help, a straight transfer. I called my sister immediately. At first she pretended she had no idea what I was talking about. Then she slipped. Well, Mum and Dad said you agreed to help Tyler. The lie made my jaw clench. I never agreed to anything, I said. Silence filled the phone for a few seconds before she sighed dramatically. Look, Tyler got into Northbridge Academy. It's a huge opportunity. You wouldn't understand because Lily probably isn't aiming that high anyway. That was the moment I realized something. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was planned. My parents didn't just steal the money, they justified it. In their minds, my daughter was simply the easier sacrifice. When I confronted my parents again that evening, they doubled down. My mom folded her arms and said, "Family helps family." I laughed bitterly. "Exactly," I said. "So when are you helping Lily?" My dad scoffed. "Don't be dramatic." Then he added something that made the room go ice cold. "If you take this any further, you'll tear this family apart." I looked him straight in the eye. "You already did that when you stole from my daughter." That night, I sat with my wife and laid everything out. The missing money, the lies, the transfer. She listened quietly until I finished. Then she said something simple that changed everything. "Good," she said. "Now we can stop protecting them." And that's when the real plan started. Because my parents thought the worst thing that could happen was an argument at Thanksgiving. They had no idea I was about to turn their little family decision into something very public and very expensive. The first thing I did was talk to a lawyer. At first, I was worried there might be nothing we could do. My dad technically had access to the account. His name was on it. But after reviewing the statements, the lawyer leaned back in his chair and said something that made me feel hope for the first time in days. Access doesn't mean ownership. He explained that the account was clearly established as a custodial college fund for Lily. Every deposit record showed that my wife and I were the ones funding it. My parents had never contributed a single dollar. And the transfer? It went directly into my sister's personal account. Not tuition. Not a school payment. Just cash. That, the lawyer said, tapping the paperwork, looks a lot like financial exploitation. Within a week, he filed a civil claim demanding the full $48,000 be returned immediately. The reaction from my family was explosive. My mom called first, hysterical. "How could you sue your own parents?" "You stole from my daughter," I replied calmly. My sister called next, furious. "Do you realize what you've done? Tyler already used the money for his enrollment." "That sounds like a Tyler problem," I said before hanging up. But the real moment came 2 days later. My parents showed up at my house unannounced. My dad looked angrier than I'd ever seen him. "You're humiliating us," he said through clenched teeth. I stepped outside and closed the door behind me so Lily wouldn't hear. "You humiliated yourselves." My mom tried a different approach. "We can fix this privately," she said. "Drop the lawsuit. Return the money," I answered. They exchanged a quick glance. Then my dad said the quiet part out loud. "We don't have it anymore. Apparently, Tyler's first semester tuition, housing deposit, and a brand new laptop had already been paid. In other words, my daughter's college fund had been spent." For a moment, I just stood there letting that sink in. Then I nodded slowly. "Okay," I said. My parents looked relieved, thinking I was backing down. But I wasn't finished. Because while they might have spent the money, they had forgotten one very important detail. My parents owned 3 rental properties. And according to my lawyer, if the court ruled in our favor, those properties could be used to recover every dollar they stole. The court date was set for 6 weeks later. And for the first time since this nightmare started, I slept peacefully. Because my parents had made one massive mistake. They thought stealing from a 14-year-old girl would have no consequences. They were about to learn exactly how wrong they were. The courtroom was quieter than I expected. My parents sat across the aisle from us, refusing to look in our direction. My sister was beside them, whispering nervously to the lawyer they had hired at the last minute. Lily didn't come. My wife and I agreed she shouldn't have to watch her grandparents explain why they emptied her future. But the judge had already read everything. The account statements, the transfer records, the deposit history showing 14 years of contributions from only 2 people, my wife and me. When my parents' lawyer tried to argue that my father was an authorized account holder, the judge interrupted him. "Yes," the judge said calmly, "but authorization does not grant the right to misappropriate funds intended for a minor beneficiary." My dad's face went pale. Then came the moment that sealed it. The judge asked my parents a simple question. Did the minor Lily receive any benefit from the withdrawal of these funds? Neither of them answered. That silence said everything. 20 minutes later, the ruling came down. My parents were ordered to repay the entire $48,000, plus legal fees and interest. And because they claimed they didn't have the cash, the judge authorized a lien against one of their rental properties until the debt was paid. My sister burst into tears. My dad just stared straight ahead. Outside the courthouse, my mom finally spoke. "You've destroyed this family." I looked at her, feeling something I never expected. Not anger, just clarity. "No," I said quietly. "You did that when you decided my daughter mattered less." A month later, the property lien forced my parents to sell one of their rentals. After fees and taxes, the check that arrived was actually a little more than what had been taken. Every dollar went straight back into Lily's college account. But the story didn't end there. When Lily eventually noticed the sudden jump in the balance, she asked why. So we told her the truth carefully, without cruelty. She listened quietly before saying something that stuck with me. "I guess now I know who actually has my back. We don't see my parents much anymore. Not because we cut them off, but because they stopped calling." And honestly, that might be the most peaceful ending we could have hoped for. Because Lily's future is safe again. And the people who tried to steal it learned a very expensive lesson. If you betray a child's trust, you don't just lose money. You lose your family too.